Welcome to Oddball. I'm Amin Elhassan. That's Izzy Gutierrez.
Here's a cup.
Izzy, finals are in a couple of days. We got that little dead period. Media day hasn't happened yet, so there's not enough stuff to talk about. So what we're going to talk about is apparently Giannis Antetokounmpo could be on the move. That's the thing that everyone's talking about because he is the biggest superstar on the market. The free agency market, not really sexy. Giannis, that's sexy.
Yes.
And so we've got to find the sexiest location for sexy Giannis to be sexy under the bright lights. And we start, of course, on Broadway, right?
Right. With the New York Knicks, because not just because they were recently eliminated, not just because when Giannis was eliminated, he was seen walking the streets of New York City, but because the spokesman for New York, Stephen A. Smith, said something in regard to Giannis. And we have the quote, but we also have sound of the quote. So here it is.
If you've got an opportunity to get Giannis, I don't give a damn who you have to give up to get him. You do it.
That was Stephen A. Smith himself. I mean, we mentioned it yesterday. You like the fit. I don't know of a team that's going to say, hey, I don't like the fit of Giannis, but you like the fit of Giannis in New York. You think, what level of possibility is this?
Let me be clear. Let's start with one thing and one thing only, which is we're not talking about what you got to give up to get him. We're just talking about he's here.
Okay.
How does he fit? I think he fits pretty good. Look, the Knicks clearly need a couple of things. Number one, they need consistent offensive production that's not named Jalen Brunson.
Right.
Number two, they need someone who can be active defensively.
Ideally, that same player.
Same player, yes. And so Giannis fulfills those things. Giannis, on his part, is not known as a closer because of his shooting struggles, because his free throw struggles. Who can forget bricking for chicken?
Who can forget Chris Whittingham famously saying that Giannis was a number 2 to Chris Middleton?
I could forget it.
All
I want to
forget
it.
Forget
I
that.
never want to
Ready?
remember that.
Okay, never
Boom.
remember that one again.
But the bricking for chicken thing is real, right? And so Jalen Brunson, the best closer in the league, would, in theory, be a great fit. Counterpoint, that's what we said about Damian Lillard 2 years ago.
True. Well, I will say that Jalen is a different style of player, maybe not hunting for threes as often as Damian does, which probably would be a bad thing, right? Wouldn't that clog up the paint if you're the New York Knicks, if Jalen wants to drive all the time, but so does Giannis? Look, I don't think if you're talking about not worrying about who you give up for him, you can't really discuss it with the Knicks because you're probably going to have to give up Karl Anthony Towns, which most people wouldn't really say, like, not even give it a second thought. Of course, you make that trade. And so if you're upgrading from Cat to Giannis, it doesn't matter if it fits particularly well. You just do it.
Yes, absolutely. And by the way, any other combination of people too, because again, Giannis is a transcendent type player who just had the best season of his career. A lot of people are like, oh, he's past his prime. I'm like, nope, you're looking at his prime right now.
Can we do that really quick? Because again, I grew up in a time where the prime was pretty much detailed. Like it was explained, hey, you're in your prime from about the ages of 26, 27 to about 32. Like 33 was the high end of it. He's still 30 years old, Giannis. And in today's age where you feel like we're extending ourselves beyond our prime, you could imagine his prime being well into 35, 36. So that conversation to me is out the window.
Well, I mean, that's like Michael Jordan's prime was like, most people would have gone by the definition, the first three-peat, but he was more dominant in the second three-peat. Certainly a smarter, more cerebral player. And the Bulls were way more successful despite not having way more talent than they did in the first three-peat. Yeah, I would say that the prime is whenever you're playing your best basketball. That's when it is.
So it's clear he would be great and welcomed and they'd tear down the streets in New York.
Yes.
What about Miami? Since we're here. They've always been tied to Giannis back when he was available the first time, reportedly. He's got some ties to Bam Adebayo.
They asked him, hey, what are your favorite cities? Your favorite place in the league? You know, it's on Twitter, and he responded, unsolicited, said Florida cities.
Yes. But this feels like a situation where Miami is just out of its depth, right? Not only when you have the Bucks GM saying, or reportedly taking the approach of we're going to tear down the roster or strip clean the roster of whoever we trade him to. Miami, A, doesn't really have a very attractive roster, and B, hasn't really shown the willingness to part with some of those attractive pieces. So it's really a non-starter, isn't it?
It reminds me of the line from Dumb and Dumber where they break into Lloyd Christmas's apartment because they're looking for the briefcase. And
like most other movies, I've only seen this the one time, so you're gonna have to remind me of the line.
It's the two henchmen, and they walk in, and the one henchman says, "Maybe we like make a mess of the place to send a message." And the second henchwoman, I should say, looks around and says, "I don't think they're gonna get that message, right?" It's like, we're gonna strip clean to send them a message, and then you look around like
it's pretty squeaky clean already.
As is if you're Miami. Look, Bam Adebayo is not something to sneeze at as far as a starting point, right?
Right.
If it's Bam Adebayo and Tyler Hero, I mean, it's pretty cool.
It might as well be an expansion franchise
sure.
if you're the Miami Heat, getting Giannis and stripping everybody else.
Right. But the flip side of it is, if you're the Miami Heat, your claim to fame is, we make lemonade out of lemons, right? We're the ones that squeeze blood out of a rock. And so you tell Giannis, look, we'll get this thing operational around you. We'll get tough guys who are going to play well. And obviously, you're coached by the best coach perhaps in the entire NBA, and Eric Spoelstra. That's your sales pitch. Unfortunately, I don't think it's the Giannis sales pitch that they'd have to worry about. It's the Bucks sales pitch where you're telling them, hey, this is the best you can do for a Giannis offer.
All right, so I don't know how much Giannis cares about repeating somebody else's path, but this was a LeBron path, right, to Miami. What about the Raptors? Well, we had the Kawhi Leonard path there, obviously won the championship, and there has been a little bit of smoke when it comes to the Raptors and the possibility of him heading there.
Yeah, I mean, and there's definitely a connection, right? There's very famous video of the Raptors war room on draft day 2013, trying to move up because they're trying to get to Giannis. They're trying to get to Giannis, and unfortunately, they could not. They just miss him. And so, because the Bucks take him at, I believe it was 15, I want to say 18, right? So, he knows, Giannis knows for a fact, they love him, right? Masai specifically loves him. Masai's Nigerian. Giannis obviously comes from a Nigerian family.
You're right at 15, by the way. There was somebody else famously taken at 18, but that's another show.
Okay. But you've got that connection there. Masai reportedly helped Giannis get his visa when he first came over here. So there's a lot of connections. And then obviously the Raptors have a history of going after players of African descent with, Siakam, OG Anunoby, Precious Achiuwa, just to name a few from the conference finals alone, right?
Big sneeze.
And so I think there is definitely an affinity there. Again, it would be the kind of same situation we're talking about Miami. It's like, Giannis, are you prepared to go to what is essentially a rebuild? And it comes back down to, I trust the front office and I trust the coaching. Now, the difference between Miami and Toronto is that Toronto actually has some stuff that's a little bit more savory to offer.
Some stuff, or not so sweet, but savory. Scottie Barnes, right, would be future face of the NBA, according to his coach.
Shout out Coach
It seems like obviously somebody that the Bucks would want back. And this was a quote from Brian Windhorst really quick, where he said that the Raptors are trying to look for a big fish. So you would imagine that, and this is also Doug Smith, who's been at it forever at the Toronto Star. He reported Giannis and the Raptors had some mutual interest there. So there is, like I said, a lot of smoke there. I don't think Giannis really cares about repeating somebody else's path. It is what it is, right? He's already done it in Milwaukee, so nobody has the path that he took. But to me, you're right. It's one of those situations where it's like the Miami Heat. If you give up on Scottie Barnes, what do we really have there? It's not like a Kawhi Leonard situation where he was forced to go over there and didn't have an option.
If I'm the Toronto Raptors, you know what? I don't, as I'm trying to, all these people are trying to court John Horst, the GM of the Bucks. Say, come on. Oh, man, future fits the league, Scottie Barnes. You know what I don't want them to see? The video of Scottie Barnes rollerblading, because he's like, Scottie's like a 5-tool player, and he's young. He's the sky's the limit. He was an all-star for the first time this year, and then the video comes out, and you're like,
one of those tools is not rollerblading, apparently. And this, of course, is not Toronto. You can tell by looking at it. This is in Florida, and this is very much a Florida thing. Like, Scottie's just sitting on his couch and saying, you know what? I'm going to try rollerblading in the middle of a busy intersection.
Yeah, one of his teammates posted this and said, like, he actually fell immediately before this video starts, which is totally believable.
He's going to mess up that face of the NBA.
All right, Izzy. Let's go ahead and tee up the next possible destination.
Where could that be?
Houston.
What? Yeah. The Houston Rockets give up on their homegrown talent that they clearly have enough of to win a championship just for this guy? No, I'm kidding. Of course, I do think that the Rockets should look into, like, they've already gone from up and coming team to team that needs a quote unquote like finishing piece, if you will. Obviously, Giannis is more than that. They would have to, probably give up on Jabari Smith Jr., probably Jalen Green, probably one of those young guys on the bench, maybe a Cam Whitmore, which I think if you're a Houston Rockets fan, you're saying, okay, fine. Like, I'm fine with that. Just leave me Sengun, leave me maybe the backcourt if you want, but if you want to touch the backcourt too, leave me Amin Thompson. If you want to bring on Giannis, do it, because that is like win the West automatically.
It's like in Half Baked when they break the news to Kenny that, hey, we found a way to post your bill.
I saw the movie just once. You're going to have to tell me exactly what happened.
We gotta bail you out, Kenny, but it's going to involve selling drugs. I know you frown upon that. And Kenny's like, go, sell drugs. Do whatever you need to do. Get me out of here.
All right. Well, I think we have to get the headlines, but there is a possibility that the Thunder.
Let's do headlines tomorrow. Let's finish out with the San Antonio Spurs. How about that? You want to put them next to Wembanyama and then have like 18 million feet of just length everywhere on the court. They'll allow like 14 points a game. It'll be the most beautiful version of defensive basketball we've ever seen, no?
So we're moving on from, we're not talking about who they have to give up. We're just talking about the vision. Yeah. So they would effectively be like the anti-Warriors of 2015, right? Yeah. You won with all that shooting and not that much size. We win with nothing but size and defense. Yeah. And you know what? Every once in a while, make a three-pointer. Like, that to me is, if you want to go ahead and just talk about leaving your imprint and like changing the game. You won your little championship in Milwaukee. You became, the Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, the Lou Alcindor, and now you're going to do absolutely wild shit with the San Antonio Spurs. That to me is the gamble of all gambles and the move to make.
Yeah, I can see that. I mean, again, it's like Robinson and Duncan being together, where Robinson's still a great player, but then you got Duncan coming up in his prime.
All right, well, we got one last thing. We got another soundbite from Stephen A. Smith. Turns out he was watching Oddball live.
Amin Elhassan's impersonation of me is a defamatory abomination of linguistic gibberish. His acting is almost as bad as this ridiculous man's rollerblading abilities. They should both stay off the weed.
Look, I've been a colleague of Amin Elhassan's for a long time, and I don't think I've actually seen him smoke anything. It's not really his drug of choice.
I don't think that was an actual Stephen A. Smith quote.
Really? Really? So I shouldn't defend you blindly?
I'm going on a limb and think that one was doctored.
All right.
Look at him rollerblade. He looks like a baby giraffe.